Patreon Q&A number 125. I want to thank all 115 of my amazing patrons. Guys, thank you so much for continuing to support me. And to everyone else listening, there's going to be spoilers for all of the series I'm going to be talking about, so tread carefully. Boxsteam asks, on a scale of 1 to 10, what are the chances in your opinion that Saitama and Blast have a fight in any capacity, 10 being a full-scale fight and 1 being there's absolutely no chance they will fight or have an altercation? So before Blast showed up, I probably would have said like an 8 or a 9, but now that he has, I'll say, you know, like a solid 7. I think there's a good chance that they're probably gonna fight or at least have an altercation. So why would they fight? Well, we can only really guess right now. They don't have a reason to fight, at least currently within the story. But aside from just the awesome notion of Blast fighting Saitama, which I'm sure one knows that his audience is probably super intrigued by that, I would say that one, having Blast like completely school Flashy Flash in that instance, I think possibly might be, you know, kind of establishing that like, hey, you know, look how strong Blast is compared to Flashy Flash. You know, it's kind of similar to how Saitama handled Flashy Flash. So like, what would happen if Blast went against Saitama? Obviously, Blast like can't defeat Saitama. No one will in the series. But clearly at this point, Blast is one of the strongest characters we've ever seen, and we're always hungering for someone to challenge Saitama. That's all we really want to see, is just how far someone could go against Saitama, essentially, right? And Blast has now put his name in the hat of like a very short list of people who can possibly push him the farthest we've ever seen so far. So those are, in my opinion, pretty good reasons for these two characters to go against each other, which I guess ultimately comes down to just fan service. But then again, there could always be a greater narrative force at play that, you know, has these characters come together. Don't forget, Blast does say, I'm sure we'll be meeting again, so I guess that guarantees that at least Blast and Saitama will be meeting again at some point, whether they're fighting or not. Now, in the webcomic currently, Blue is about to have like this altercation with Saitama to some extent. They're gonna talk and something's gonna happen. So it's always possible that Blue might challenge Saitama or something and then Saitama smacks him. And then this gets like the attention of Blast possibly. And that's just the webcomics continuity, of course, but in the manga, Blue will eventually show up as well, and then I'm sure, you know, their paths will cross again at some point and then lead to maybe Blast coming back into the picture. My original reasoning as to why I thought Blast was gonna fight Saitama is because I thought Blast might have seen Saitama as like a god level threat. You know, similar to how Batman saw Superman, that's like why he went after him. And that still could possibly happen. Or maybe the story eventually leads to Saitama and Blast having like this dispute over the cube stuff or a decision being made regarding those things, and maybe they have like a conflict. Blast is like, you know what, I have to do it my way, and then Saitama's like, no, we're doing it my way, and then, you know, they have like their altercation or fight or whatever. But anyway, this all takes me back to, on a scale of 1 to 10 chances of them fighting, I think a 7 is good for at least right now. Joe D asks, what's your perfect ending for One Piece, My Hero, or One Punch Man? Feel free to pick any you wish. So I guess I'll pick One Punch Man. My Hero and One Piece, I think, are pretty clear cut at this point, or at least in my opinion. But I think a good ending for One Punch Man would be Saitama ultimately defeating God, which is where it's very likely headed. And then maybe Saitama gains some sort of solace from that, and he just feels fulfilled with his life, and he no longer is the way that we see him in the series currently. I'm not gonna go into the possibilities of God dying and undoes the monstification and Saitama loses his powers and all that stuff. That may or may not happen, but I just ultimately want the series to end with Saitama finding some sort of happiness, I guess. I think that would be a great ending for One Punch Man. And then for your second question, can you explain to a novice what Jujutsu Kaisen is about? What makes it so worth watching? So Jujutsu Kaisen essentially is a great fusion of like Bleach, Naruto, and My Hero Academia. I think it blends all those series together really well and makes a pretty awesome and intriguing series. But as for like a quick plot summary, is that I guess the world of Jujutsu Kaisen revolves around cursed energy. That's basically like the power source within this world, like Chakra in Naruto, or like Raietsu in Bleach, or maybe even Nen in Hunter x Hunter, you know, stuff like that. And this cursed energy basically makes all of the crazy powerful magic magic and the power scale stuff to exist, along with like these cursed spirits were essentially like the monsters of the series. Monsters from One Punch Man or the Hollows from Bleach. And then there's these group of super powerful beings who can harness the power of cursed energy, which is called like jujitsu. That's where the title jujitsu comes from, which means sorcery. Like the literal translation for Jujutsu Kaisen is sorcery fight. And that's basically it. The story follows the sorcerers trying to take down the monsters or the cursed spirits of the world. That's just like the overarching aspect of it. But as for like the main character, Yuji, he eats like the finger of the strongest guy to ever live, pretty much. So like, let's just say there was like a Saitama or like a Blast, but he was like a bad guy back in the day, and there's fragments of him that exist still currently, and he ate one of the fragments, so now like the evil Blast, like it possesses his body from time to time, and he's a really cool character too. So there's like that whole aspect of it, you know, kind of like Naruto with Kurama and, you know, Ichigo with his hollow and stuff like that. L asks, do you think Blast has also seen what Psycho saw with the third eye ability, and that's the reason why he's collecting the cubes? And it's very possible. We don't really have an explanation as to why Blast is collecting the cubes yet. He just says that it's a hobby of his. But there has to be a reason why he is collecting the cubes, right? And given the high possibility that he's an Esper of some sort, it is possible he may have the third eye ability and possibly saw it. If it's not the third eye stuff, or he just doesn't know about the prophecy before it was revealed in the series, I assume either he just randomly came across one of the cubes, just how you normally would, I guess, or he came across like a monster or a villain who had made the deal with God, and then that's how he figured things out. 8-Bit asks, I was wondering if someone else eats Sukuna's fingers, and assuming they don't die, do you think Sukuna would be able to travel from Itadori to another host, or would you just end up gaining special grade level cursed energy instead? This is a great question, and I'm surprised they really haven't touched on this in the series yet. This is entirely up for interpretation, but I assume that if somebody else ate Sukuna's fingers and they didn't die, I guess, I mean, he would possess them as well, and then I guess they would have like a shared consciousness. Like, I don't necessarily think there would be like two different versions of Sukuna, like, you know, kind of like how Black S duplicates himself. I think he would probably be like omnipresent, possibly, or it could be the other way around and there's just two different versions of Sukuna, but they're both ultimately the same person. Beowolf asks, do you think that the dark saber from the Mandalorian can cut through Wolverine's adamantium? So I don't follow Mandalorian. I haven't watched it yet, but I eventually will. It is on my list and I'm looking forward to it. I do have Disney Plus, so I might as well use it, aside from just watching WandaVision. I'm a hard white belt in Star Wars, but if I had to put money on this bet, I would say that the dark saber can probably cut through adamantium. And then for your second question, Star Wars Jedi Knights versus the Avengers, who would win? Again, I'm not qualified to answer this question, but given just from what I've personally seen from the two different movies, you know, the two continuities, the Jedis, the Avengers seem way more impressive to me. So again, if I had to bet on this, I'd put my money on the Avengers. Chase C asks, I'm wondering what would happen if Prime All Might squared off against Boros. So really difficult for me to personally say because, you know, there's just super speculation regarding Prime All Might at this point, unless Vigilantes wants to shed some more light on this guy. But I'll say that I think Prime All Might was probably strong enough to at least give Boros a competitive fight. Can't really say much more than that until we get more information. But yeah, stay mad, everyone. Crazy Iguana asks, do you think Toichiro from Mob Psycho could take on the S-Class except for Tatsumaki and Blast? So do you mean like could he take on individual S-Class heroes or all of the S-Class aside from Tatsumaki and Blast? I think he for sure could compete or, you know, even defeat some of the S-Class heroes individually. But like if 15 of the S-Class heroes teamed up against Toichiro, I think he would lose. Crusader Deus Vult asks, Flashy Flash versus Aramin and Destro. Well, we haven't really seen Aramin do much aside from just use the tranquilizers. So not really sure, but considering how Destro did against Metal Bat, I'm thinking Flashy Flash has a good chance in this fight, at least right now. Second question, Metal Bat versus a solid punch from Blast. Again, we haven't seen Blast punch or anything like that, but he's probably exceptionally strong considering how he's been handling the cube. So I think Metal Bat could probably take at least one punch from Blast. I think that's fair to say. Not sure about multiple ones at this point. Delmante asks, who are your top 5 favorite Jujutsu Kaisen characters? So number 1 is probably Sukuna. Number 2, Gojo. Then I like Yuji. Fushigoro's awesome. And then I guess Todo. I think those are probably my 5 favorite. They're all awesome. Geruda asks, I think Enma and Zoro have a Naruto-Kurama relationship going on. Do you think he'll master Enma during this fight or later on in the series? I wouldn't be surprised if Zoro masters Enma by the end of this arc. I mean, I don't think he's ultimately going to finish off Kaido or be a part of the finishing of Kaido. I still do have a lot of faith that he's going to fight King, and then that's going to be his big moment. But I think it's more likely that he probably masters Enma in the Shanks arc, or just at least before the final Laugh Tale battle goes on. I think everyone will essentially more or less be mastered by that point. Legandaryus asks, do you think Saitama and Blast will have an arc together like the other S-Class heroes? I think that would be super interesting, obviously, and it's a possibility. Like I said earlier, Blast did say, you know, they'll probably be meeting again. And the final arc, you know, which seemingly is going to revolve around God, could heavily feature Blast, you know, interacting with Saitama. And your second question, will Metal Bat have an arc moment with Saitama? I think that's what you're asking here. If he gets saved by Saitama from cyborgification in the webcomic, I think it would be cool for Metal Bat to have an arc or at least a moment with Saitama, because they haven't really had that outside of the audiobooks yet. But I'm not really sure who's going to save Metal Bat from cyborgification. I mean, it seems like he's saved for now because, you know, he got let off the hook. But it is possible Saitama does save him, or at least breaks him out of the Neo Heroes jail or wherever he's being held. But I'm just really unsure at this point, but I do think Saitama will eventually at some point in the story have his moment with Metal Bat. Little Ferrari asks, how well do you think the heroes of One Punch Man could do against MCU Thanos and his army? Well, as for his army, I think Tatsumaki could probably solo them, right? But as for Thanos himself, if he had the Infinity Gauntlet with all of the stones, it's looking pretty difficult for them to take him down. I mean, as I always say, it's really difficult to like compare like realistic type, you know, movie feats to like anime feats, which are extrapolated to an extreme degree. But I don't know, trying to think of it in relative ways, I mean, maybe they could take down Thanos, but I don't know. I mean, it all depends on if he had the Infinity Gauntlet or not. But if he did have like the full Infinity Gauntlet, especially like extrapolated to anime degree, he would be almost unbeatable. Mr.Awsome asks, could Child Emperor and the rest of the S-Class, excluding Blast and Metal Knight, surpass Metal Knight's feat of building the HQ in only a week? I highly doubt it. Yeah, I don't think they could. Metal Knight being able to do that really relied on Metal Knight having that insane arsenal of robots, which I don't think Child Emperor has, or anyone else from the S-Class. And even if Drive Knight did have that kind of stuff, I don't think he would use it for the benefit of the Hero Association. My second question, if you had to plan out all of the final fights for the Neo Heroes arc, who would you put all of the leaders up against and who would win each match? So Raiden versus Darkshine, and Darkshine would win that. Genos versus Blue, and then maybe Genos wins. A versus Zombie Man, I think that would be pretty interesting, and then Zombie Man wins. Excel and the Hunters versus Tank Top Master and the Tank Top Army. Zaditz and Infelsinave, they're unknowns because I guess they're just full-blown cyborgs right now, so I don't even know if they have to go against an S-Class hero. Ryumon, man, I wanted to see Ryumon go against Metal Bat. That seems like that would be an awesome fight. But that might not happen, but I mean, then again, it could. But if not Metal Bat, then I'd like to see Ryumon go against Atomic Samurai. And then I'd like to see Child Emperor go against one of Metal Knight's strong robots, I guess. Like he brings out his, you know, Brave Giant in the webcomic. Or we have Child Emperor versus Webby Gaza. Maybe that was kind of being set up possibly. Sean H asks, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck? This is the age-old Reddit meme question, right? I think it would probably be easier to fight one horse-sized duck, right? Easily get overwhelmed, I suppose, but like if you just have one huge target, it would probably be easier. Not saying victory is guaranteed. I mean, for me personally, I'd probably have to go into the flow state and have a lot of luck on my side, but maybe if I could eventually get its back and, you know, rear naked it unconscious, maybe I can win, but most likely I probably would just get eaten or something. Snowpeas asks, out of all the anime you've seen, who would give the best motivational TED Talk? So I think that if Saitama, you know, went into his serious mode, and wasn't being like all jokey and, you know, lackadaisical, I think he could give a pretty good motivational talk, especially if he gives like an earnest recount of his experiences and his path to like removing his limiter. Steven asks, what do you think one will do with Phoenix Chickman? I think his re-inclusion into the story will eventually lead him to becoming Brilliant Eagle Phoenix Man. I do think that that eventually will happen again. But how we get there, I'm unsure. Maybe he makes a deal with God, or maybe God makes a deal with him, something like that. I think Phoenix Man taking Child Emperor to like the mind spiritual realm is pretty important. It might be giving us clues as to where his importance is in the future of the story. And also his ability to resurrect the dead. I think that might come back into play later too, possibly. Tim Sim88 asks, how do you think a fight between Darkshine and MCU Age of Ultron Hulk would play out? So like I was saying earlier in the Q&A, it's difficult to compare like anime feats to like the realistic movie MCU type feats. But given what I've personally seen, it doesn't really seem like Age of Ultron Hulk is quite on the level of how Darkshine is portrayed to be. So Darkshine would probably win, but then again, I don't know what Darkshine would be like if he was, you know, brought into like the reality of like the MCU, and, you know, vice versa with the Hulk, you know what I mean? Wolffire54 asks, did you expect Blast to be more serious and bitter type of a superhero? I was surprised to see him being a cool guy. Yeah, I was really surprised to see Blast being like a cool, you know, like, hey, I'm laid back kind of. I was expecting Blast to be more of like the MCU Doctor Strange, but now it appears that he's more like MCU Tony Stark, you know? And for your second question, do you think Blast doesn't want to reveal himself because he doesn't want people to find out about the cubes and God? I don't think so. I mean, if Blast was revealed, why would they automatically know about the cubes? You know what I mean? I personally think that Blast doesn't reveal himself just because it's what Sitch said. He just doesn't like being in the limelight. He just prefers to be on the down low. And also, you know, like I've been saying before, he probably just has faith in the S-Class and he's not really needed anymore. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the video today, guys. Once again, I want to thank all 115 of my amazing patrons, guys. I appreciate it so much. And to everyone else listening, if you would like to be in next week's Q&A, simply check out the Patreon. The link is in the description. The $5 tier will give you access to this video. And if you haven't already, please subscribe as well. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next one.